Part 12. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 111. Good. Seeing her nod, Kurosawa Hikaru also made up his mind. He has already thought clearly that in the future, he will probably not be able to choose one of the two or three at the last moment, because the palms and backs of his hands are all flesh. Since you can't choose, you'll want them all. Although it is difficult to achieve such a result, and there may be many setbacks, for now, Sci-fi Yuan's future is off to a good start. What do you mean by good? Sci-fi Yuan couldn't figure out his thoughts for a while. Does this sentence mean that he agrees to be taken care of by her? I will find a way to get your grandfather to agree and let you marry me instead of someone else, Kurosawa explained when he realized that she didn't understand. That's difficult. Regarding this matter, although Sci-fi Yuan hopes for this in the future, it has no hope. Although Kurosawa Hikari was a student at Todai University, and a top student at that, she was not an only child after all, and her eldest brother was good enough, so the Shifunjin family did not need to find an outstanding man to marry him. Do you think it's feasible if I become Neon's strongest archmaster? Kurosawa Hikaru actually didn't have much confidence, so he thought about it and asked. Perhaps Sato Kyuden made such a suggestion, but he knew little about it and could not be sure of the situation. Grandpa is also a Kyoto student. He respects his teacher and Agazawara Juden very much. If you can become the strongest Kyoto master at such a young age, maybe you can. Sci-fi Yuan heard this method in the future and answered while thinking. Are you serious? The next moment, she suddenly had a flash of inspiration, reacted, and widened her eyes. Seriously? Kurosawa Hikaru nodded. Originally, he had no intention of continuing to study and develop in the art of archery. But for the sake of the future of Sci-fi Yuan, he can give it a try and become famous with his perfect archery skills. Wow! Thinking that he just relied on his strength to defeat the teacher, a 9th Dan archery master, Sci-fi Yuan was suddenly pleasantly surprised when he thought about his real potential in the future. If Kurosawa Mitsuru can really become Neon's strongest archmaster and the youngest genius in history, maybe Grandpa will really agree to let them be together. Do you think your grandpa will agree? Seeing her stunned expression of surprise, Kurosawa felt it was a bit cute, but he was still talking about business, so he asked. It should be, and it's very possible. Sci-fi Yuan Mirai nodded crazily, clenching his fists like a chicken pecking at rice. Perhaps the skill of archery is useless in life, it is difficult to make money, and there is no way to go to the battlefield. It is just a sport and hobby. But in her family, except for her mother who came from a marriage and had never learned archery, her father, eldest brother, and grandfather all learned archery. Grandpa is particularly fond of archery, and has a preconceived affinity for young people with good attitudes and talents who learn archery. In that case, I have a plan. Seeing her excitement and surprise on her face, Kurosawa smiled and said. Tell me the story. Will your grandpa go to the Kyoto competition? I heard from Mr. Yosuji that there is a National University Kyoto competition during the summer vacation. Occasionally, I'm not sure. It mainly depends on his availability. What if Sato Kyuden invites him to see it? Then I will definitely go. Grandpa often drinks tea with the teacher, and they have a very good relationship. Then let the archery competition be my first meeting with him. Realizing this, Kurosawa Hikaru immediately finalized his plan. The first impression is very important, whether it is between men or women, even between men. Sci-fi Yuan's future heart was beating wildly, because she had a very strong feeling that her fate that had been doomed long ago might be rewritten. She doesn't need to get married like her mother, marrying a stranger who seems to be incompatible with each other. She could marry Kurosawa Hikaru, marry the man who made her heart beat wildly. I'm going to talk to Sato Kyuden. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her expression of being so excited and so happy that she burst into laughter. He also smiled contagiously, swept away the heaviness of his predecessor, and stood up. "Go ahead, I'll wait for you here." Sifan nodded in the future. Immediately, she watched Kurosawa Hikaru take steps to leave. She stayed where she was, sitting by the wall, watching silently. Observing carefully, she found that Kurosawa Hikaru's back was tall, giving people a sense of solid security, and that side face was extremely handsome. Perhaps it was the filter of a hero saving a beauty, but she felt very comfortable looking at Kurosawa Hikaru. "He promised that he would find a way to invite your grandpa to watch the game." Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru came back. It must be said that although Sato Kyuden disliked him at first, after winning recognition, he became easy to get along with and had an extraordinary bearing. Very good. Seeing the plan take shape, Sifan just feels relieved in the future. From this point of view, the teacher supports them. Calm down. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that her body was no longer shaking, and sat back down in her original position with a smile. The distance between the two people was about 30 centimeters, and they were not close to each other, because the maid Sayaka Akai was still watching from a distance. According to Sato Kyuden, Miss Akai's tolerance is limited. It's okay to let them make friends and talk, but if they go further, she can't just sit back and watch because of her duty. "By the way, I really didn't expect your archery to be so good." Shifunjayuan Mirai nodded and couldn't help but sigh. "I'm good in many ways. I'll show you later." Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. In fact, he didn't expect it at first, but now it seems that the mastery level of archery is enough to compete with Sato Kyuden. As for the perfect level of archery, it is a level that is enough to be recorded in history. After what happened today, he is more confident about what will happen next. Because he has a second mastery level skill, piano. In view of today's competition, if he guessed correctly, his current piano level is enough to compete with the world's top level. Is that so? Hearing this, Shifunjayuan Mirai's eyes moved down and his tone was strange. "What are you talking about? I didn't mean that, little dirty girl." When he realized that she had misunderstood and thought he was driving, Kurosawa Mitsuru was speechless. He suddenly realized that although this girl looked like a lady from a noble family, with a noble and cold temperament, she was actually quite sultry and knew a lot. She was watched so closely by her family, and he didn't know where she learned it. "What do you mean?" Shifunjayuan Mirai was a little surprised. "You will know later, and you will see more." Kurosawa Mitsuru didn't show off, but just said. "That's really exciting." Realizing that he still had a lot of strengths, Shifunjayuan Mirai rested her head on his shoulder. This time, her smile was no longer bitter and far-fetched, but came from the heart, making her already beautiful face even more captivating. For women, mystery is one of the most attractive charms. There is no doubt that Kurosawa Mitsuru has the trait. "I will take you to many places in the future to see different scenery." Facing her smiling and admiring eyes, Kurosawa Hikaru only felt his heartbeat quicken, and said after a few seconds of hesitation. He wanted to save this girl from the cage, wanted her to experience more things, wanted to see her smile more, and wanted to have more stories with her. If he had the ability, when the opportunity to be a hero and save a beautiful girl was in front of him, no man would refuse. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 112. As they revealed their true feelings, made promises and agreements, the two sat together and talked for a long time. The two of them seemed to have endless topics to talk about. "Miss, do you want to practice archery for a while?" At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the maid Akai Sayaka couldn't stand it anymore and came over to ask. As a maid, it is her duty to serve the young lady's life and supervise her learning and growth. When you come to the archery dojo, you can't just play like this. If you keep doing this, it will be difficult to check the results of your archery progress later. Okay. Shifunjayuan Mirai noticed when she came over, and although she was reluctant to finish, she still stood up. It was very rare that Miss Akai was willing to give her so much time. She also found out now that although Miss Akai usually looked very serious, she was actually very good to her. She walked forward on the wooden floor of the archery dojo in Tabi and went to get the bow. Thank you. Kurosawa Hikaru also stood up at this time, walked a few steps forward to Sayaka Akai's side, and said, "What do you mean, Mr. Kurosawa?" Akai Sayaka stood in a very standard position. She was still wearing a maid outfit, standing straight, with her hands folded in front of her, looking at the young lady's back. Let me be with her. There was a chance. Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and decided to confirm it. The young lady wants to make friends. As a maid, I have no reason to stop you. I don't support you being together. Akai Sayaka didn't look at him either, just said calmly. If it's not just about making friends, is there a reason? Yes. Do you know about her grandfather? After getting the personal confirmation from the person herself, Kurosawa Hikaru had a rough idea and asked again. I know that the Akai family has served the Shifunjayuan family for 120 years. Is the Shifunjayuan family so old? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. To be honest, he didn't know much about this family. In theory, the history of each family is very long, but a large family that has been passed down for more than 100 years is not simple. The long-term inheritance of a family requires a lot of hard work, such as marrying with a famous family or elite talents, constantly expanding the network of relationships, and supporting each other. Can I understand that you are helping me? There are not enough students from the University of Tokyo. There are thousands of them every year, but your archery level is very strong. At this point, Akai Sayaka finally turned her head and looked at Kurosawa Hikaru with some admiration. As a subsidiary of the Shifunjayuan family for many years, although she has never practiced archery, she has heard about it since she was a child and has some understanding of it. That's why she knows very well how valuable the competition between Kurosawa Hikaru and Sato Kyuden is. I understand. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded when he saw her reminder. As she said, although students from the University of Tokyo are very impressive, they can be taken care of by various large companies after graduation because of many alumni, but this status alone is not the top. But his archery talent and strength can stand at the top, and he is one of the few people, which is not ordinary. During the conversation, Shifunjayuan Mirai had already picked up the Japanese bow again, bowed solemnly, and walked to the shooting point. Every move of the opposite sex can attract men's attention, and the way she draws the bow and shoots the arrow is even more heroic. Pop. According to the standard steps of the 8 sections of the shooting method, Shifunjayuan Mirai shot the arrow. It's a beautiful archery posture, but it's a pity that it didn't hit the target. Kurosawa Hikaru thought her posture was beautiful, but after taking a look at the target, he couldn't help but say. Kyudo competitions below the professional level are usually close range, that is, the range is 28 meters. The young lady has not practiced 60-meter long-range shooting. Hearing this evaluation, Akai Sayaka couldn't help but defend her. I said it's a pity not because of her level, but because the target is too far away. With such a good shooting form, if the target is closer, it will definitely hit the bullseye. Seeing her defending her shortcomings, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. What are you going to do? Akai Sayaka found that he took a step and walked, so she asked. I'll take her to the previous shooting range. Kurosawa Hikaru waved his hand. Let's go to another shooting range, I'll teach you. The distance was very close, Kurosawa Hikaru quickly walked to her side. Sorry, I can't let you teach me now. Standing with a bow in hand, Shifunjayuan Mirai shook her head, very tempted, but could only decline. Why? Kyudo has a school, And each teacher's shooting style is different. I'm the wind chasing style. If the shooting style changes, it will be bad for grandpa to see it. Okay then. You can teach me later. Shifunjayuan was worried that he would be unhappy, so she agreed. Wait until I get to know your grandpa. Yeah. While chatting, they also went to another close-range shooting range. The two walked side by side, and in the aisle of the transfer site, Shifunjayuan looked back left and right. What's wrong? Seeing her sneaky little movements, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little curious. But at this moment, Shifunjayuan turned around with one foot as the axis, tiptoed, and kissed Kurosawa Hikaru gently on the face. This kiss was just a touch and then gone, like a dragonfly touching the water, and it only happened once. This is what we agreed on just now, you win. After kissing his cheek, Shifunjayuan looked back again with a guilty conscience, and found that no one else saw it, so she blushed and said, "Isn't it a kiss?" Kurosawa Mitsuru didn't expect that she was doing this, and was stunned for a moment, with the soft and elastic afterglow on her face, teasing. "You wish, this is my first kiss, wait until you get my grandfather's consent." Shifunjayuan, who was a little embarrassed to kiss her face, rolled her eyes when she heard this. Ha ha ha. Seeing that she was a little shy, Kurosawa Mitsuru was immediately amused. Although this girl's idea was wild, she actually didn't have much experience in contact with the opposite sex. It was really cute that she blushed just by kissing her cheek. "What are you laughing at?" Shifunjayuan was very embarrassed, and she was a little embarrassed to see him laughing at her. By the way, let's add contact information later. I was so anxious when I was blocked outside the gate just now. Kurosawa Mitsuru didn't continue to stimulate her, but said, "How anxious were you at that time? You said it so easily. I couldn't get in at that time and was so late. Weren't you anxious?" Kurosawa Mitsuru said resentfully when he found that she still had the heart to tease. Luckily, he had some connections and was able to get the phone number of Mr. Yasuji through Miss Ninomiya, otherwise it would be really finished. A little. Just a little, Kurosawa Mitsuru looked at her dimly. "There's nothing I can do. I didn't like you at that time. I was anxious just because I misjudged it. Even if I joined the whole school, I couldn't get in, and I couldn't contact you." Shifunjayuan was stared at by him, turned his head away, and said a little embarrassedly. The subtext of this sentence actually revealed a lot. "I didn't like it at that time, so what about now?" Kurosawa Mitsuru noticed her subconscious meaning and asked with a sense of relief. Just now, he was affected by Sato Kayudan's words, and he didn't dare to flirt with her for a while, and was in a state of hesitation. But now he has figured it out. Maybe there is a saying that if you don't marry, why flirt, but you will know the taste after tasting the marrow. When dating a girl, the girl feels very satisfied, and so does he. Every date makes him excited. Every date ends with a sense of accomplishment. It's true that when he made up his mind to be a playboy, he put aside the secular concepts and felt much more relaxed, no longer bound by his hands and feet. Maybe he will have 3 or 4 relationships, but he is also very clear about one thing. The dating task is triggered when the girl has a good impression of him and wants to date him. He will do his best to make every date the best, show his talents, give the other party a perfect date, and leave good memories. As for the final result, he will face every relationship squarely. If the other party is willing, he can be responsible to the end, and make up as much as possible for the debts, and treat them equally. I like it very much. Shifunjayuan did not evade or dodge this, but faced him directly, smiling like a flower, with admiration in his eyes, and more joy. She was in a very relaxed and happy mood, because the burden that had been weighing on her heart for many years was shared by Kurosawa Hikaru, and it was no longer suffocating her. And unlike girls of the same age, She had no autonomy in marriage since she was a child, and had to face marriage directly. In addition, she had just said something like keeping a mistress, so in front of Kurosawa Hikaru, she had no scruples. From September to November, it took nearly 2 months, and the book is finally going to be put on the shelves. In short, it will be put on the shelves on time on November 1st. I will ask the responsible editor tomorrow for the specific time of the shelf, and then I will post a statement on the shelf to inform everyone. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 113. 250,000 words. After so long, Shushu is finally going to be on the shelves. The title has also been changed back, woohoo. At midnight AM tonight, November 1st, the book will be officially on the shelves. By the way, November 1st is my birthday, so it's not too much to say happy birthday, right? Finally it's on the shelves. Shushu can let go and do a great job. Roll up your sleeves, roll up your sleeves. First of all, Shushu would like to thank everyone for their support and follow-up reading, which has allowed this book to take up all the recommended positions before it was put on the shelves. I have basically read all the comments in this chapter, and I have replied to all the questions. I have also modified some unreasonable content according to everyone's opinions. The author's level is limited. This is the first time I write about Tokyo. Thank you for your guidance. Shushu deleted a lot of comments, because some comments may affect other readers' impressions. The key is that the author is sensitive and can't stand being criticized, and some comments are tempting, so they were deleted. This book has achieved the best results since I came to Kidian. Thanks to the patient guidance of the editor Haun. Let's not talk too much nonsense, let's talk about something practical. On the first day of the release, 5 chapters were updated. It was different from before the release. After the release, each chapter was 3,000 words. Basic update, 2 updates per day, that is, more than 6,000 words. Although the number of chapters is the same, the number of words is half a times more, equivalent to 3 updates. If there are more than 2 updates a day, such as 3 updates, it will be counted as one more update, and the calculation is the same. It feels very difficult. It's too slow to write love stories. Let me say something first. Shushu is the type of person who must pay back what he owes. I once owed more than 700 updates on other websites, and I paid it back almost a year a day, not bragging, and I will never fail to finish the finale. I am not a super coder. It takes at least 1.5 hours to write a chapter of 3,000 words, because love stories are different from fantasy stories. It is easy to have problems if you write too fast. If you add more updates for the sake of adding more updates, you may write very watery, so the rules may be a little higher. Please forgive me. Here are the rules for adding more chapters. For every 100 average subscriptions, add 1 chapter, no upper limit. The subscriptions of handsome men and beautiful women can help this book go further. Please support me, please. If the first subscription exceeds 10,000, light up the 10,000 subscription badge, and add 5 more chapters. For every 300 monthly votes, add 1 chapter. If you can enter the top 100 of the monthly vote list, add 10 more chapters. Please vote more monthly, and I will pay you back if you owe me chapters. As for the top 100, if you don't have dreams, what's the difference between you and salted fish? For every 5,000 total recommendation votes, add 1 chapter. Recommendation votes are free, and you will always get more if you accumulate them day by day. Please smash me to death. The leader of 100,000 Kidian coins will get add 2 chapters, and 50,000 Kidian coins will get add 1 chapter. It's not that Shushu doesn't treat money as money, it's good enough for everyone to subscribe and vote, and I don't force rewards if there are local tyrants and rich women, just ignore what I said, and smash me to death. The Silver Alliance with 1 million Kidian coins at one time will get add 30 chapters. If you are so rich, I will not be a human being. A Golden Alliance of 10 million Kidian coins at one time, just tell me what you want from me. How can I be so worthy? Shushu is already lying down, you can do whatever you want. The number of owed chapters will continue to accumulate without limit, and it may not be possible to pay it back on the same day, but I will try my best to write and add chapters, and will never let down the kindness and love of every reader. Shushu is very affectionate and loves every reader deeply, and those who scold me do not count. The current number of owed chapters, 2, thanks to the leader Xiaoxiao, 100,000 Kidian coins. Also, thank you very much for your reward support, because there are too many people, I can't thank them all, sorry. Finally, I want to subscribe, please, readers. Shushu kneels down. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 114. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't expect that she would be so direct. He would be shy even if he kissed her on the cheek. Looking at her beautiful smiling eyes, her admiring and adoring eyes, he froze in place. How does it feel to be confessed to? Heartbeat, excitement, tingling all over, and an indescribable sense of satisfaction. That sense of satisfaction comes from recognition and gain, just like getting feedback on something you have done. No, it's not just that, it's more impactful. Her face, her smile, her eyes, her hair, everything about her was like a painting, carved into Kurosawa's eyes and breaking into his heart. Me too. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. He was glad that he had the courage to take this step. Maybe this is the feeling of falling in love, not just because of appearance. But what she did on this day, at this moment, was fascinating and unforgettable. He could tell one thing, he fell in love with the person in front of him. I liked you a little when I saw you shoot the first arrow. When I realized that you might marry me, I became very fond of you. When did you start? Their eyes met, as if there was an electric shock. Saifanjayuan Marai saw his eyes, gentle and happy, and couldn't help but ask. It started when I first met you, but at this moment, I became very fond of you. Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it carefully and then said. In fact, when he first saw the future of Saifanjayuan, there was a moment when he felt longing and fell in love at first sight. Because Saifanjayuan Marai's appearance, temperament, cold white skin, and tall figure of nearly 1.7 meters all meet his standards for an ideal partner, and he has an urge to be with her. However, at that time, he had no power, no money, but he was a rich young lady, so the longing and yearning at that moment were directly suppressed by the reality, and he was an honest tutor and tutor. She studies. But things have changed recently. Because of the awakening of the system, he has the greatest support and confidence, so he looks at this girl again and dares to talk to her. Saifanjayuan Marai's heartbeat was very fast. Hearing such a confession, he blushed a little. Looking at the man in front of him, he had the urge to hug him. Let's agree in advance. Before Grandpa agrees with you, we can't date you, and we can't do many things. However, she quickly suppressed this impulse and agreed. In this matter, she is actually more impulsive than Kurosawa Hikaru, because she has been restrained by a strict tutor for too long, and she is extremely eager for many things that she cannot do. But the character of mind achieved by years of studying archery can still keep her sane in the midst of madness. I know. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her flawless face and slender white neck, blushed, and nodded. This girl only stretched out her arms and legs from the gaps in the cage, but her body was still bound by her family and was not completely liberated. 4 years, I can only wait for you for 4 years at most. When I graduate from college, Grandpa will let me get married. Because this matter is very important, Saifanjai Yuan also reminded him in the future. It doesn't take 4 years, I will be there before then in this regard, Kurosawa said seriously. Good. Women are creatures that like commitment and attitude very much. Sifenuen nodded in the future. Let's go, people are coming. At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that someone was coming from behind. It was Sayaka Akai. After deliberately delaying for a while, he followed. After that, the two people no longer stayed where they were and moved forward together. Returning to the first shooting range, there are already people shooting arrows here. They are the dojo disciples who were just watching the battle at the second shooting range. Mr. Kurosawa. As he arrived, everyone stopped shooting arrows, turned around and bowed in salute. Most of these people are famous and influential people outside the dojo, but here, they are just archers. Just like this, Kurosawa Hikari, who has extraordinary bow skills, has won the recognition and respect of everyone even though he is still young. This is like a swordsman in a sword dojo who will respect an unparalleled swordsman. Everyone can just be busy with their own business and don't worry about me. There was no need to greet him, but he was saluted by everyone. It was so solemn, and Kurosawa Hikaru was a little uncomfortable, so he waved his hand. I'm going to shoot arrows. Sifenuen was a little embarrassed when his fellow apprentices looked at him in the future, so he quickly ran away without saying a word. It's just that the two of them were fine in private, but she still wasn't used to being watched by so many people and couldn't feel at ease. Seeing her little steps that seemed like running away, the people in the dojo, who were basically all married women, could naturally tell the clues at a glance and all smiled knowingly. Ahem. Being stared at by everyone, even if Kurosawa Hikaru was thick-skinned, he couldn't stand it anymore. He coughed lightly and walked to the foot of the wall to stand. After watching for a while, he came back to his senses and discovered one thing. Although he wanted to shoot archery together, he had given the bow to teacher Masaki Yosuji before. Kurosawa, do you want to shoot an arrow? At this moment, Masaki Yosuji walked over with a bow and arrows. Teacher Yosuji, I was so rude just now, I'm sorry. When you say CAO, CAO is here. Kurosawa Hikaru realizes that he is so considerate. Now he calms down and chooses to apologize. He was brought into the dojo by Mr. Yosuji, but he ended up challenging the dojo master, which undoubtedly caused trouble for others. It's okay. Are you feeling better? Yosuji Masaka didn't care about this and smiled. Even if Kurosawa Hikaru fails to win Sato 9th Dan, he will not be too entangled in this matter. Because he knew the potential of this young man very well, and it didn't matter if he had some shortcomings. If this incident could stimulate his enthusiasm for practicing archery, it would be a good thing. Much better. Kurosawa Hikaru knew that he was referring to what he wanted to rest just now, and nodded. Are you excited, girl? You are so young. Yosuji Masaka stood leaning against the wall, looking at the shot sight at the girl with a high ponytail, a heroic figure, and a picturesque profile. This was the first time he had seen this girl, but her extraordinary temperament, words, deeds, and shooting style all showed how outstanding this girl was. This is truly a talented man and a beautiful woman, a match that is enviable. By the way, please don't tell others about what happened today. Don't worry, I have a sense of discretion. Even Dongda will not care about students falling in love. By the way, Mr. Yosuji, when is the archery competition? Kurosawa Hikaru saw his smile, as if smiling at his aunt, and asked as he remembered the original agreement. August 10th to August 12th are game days. Seeing him taking the initiative to mention it, Yosuji Masaki immediately became energetic. If this kid were to represent Dongda in the competition, given his level, he would be a sure winner and would definitely bring glory to the school. The game is so short, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. This is a national competition, only held for 3 days? He had never participated in related activities before and didn't know much about it, but based on what he knew about Neon from watching anime, various competitions lasted a long time. Although it is a national archery competition, compared to other martial arts, the number of participants in archery is relatively small. In fact, there are not that many participants. Moreover, the competition time of archery is very short, unlike other competitions. Indeed, Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and thought so. Kyoto is different from basketball, volleyball, and football. It is very straightforward. If you hit the target, you will hit the target. If you miss the target, you will miss the target. You have to reserve some time. When you return to school tomorrow, I will help you register for the competition. Good. If you have time, come to the club more often. Don't be like before, where you only reported once and couldn't find anyone. With his consent, Masaki Yosuji also said quietly. He was very concerned about the fact that Kurosawa Hikaru reported once after school on Wednesday and then disappeared until today. After all, Tokyo University is an institution that emphasizes culture. It was not easy for such a gifted genius to appear. He was very excited at first, but in the end, he could not wait for anyone, or even couldn't find anyone, which made him anxious to death. If Kurosawa Hikaru hadn't contacted him today, he would have gone to the classroom to block the door tomorrow. If I have time, I will go to the club to show up. Kurosawa Hikaru thanked him for making a special trip today and nodded, but did not agree on a specific time. After all, he has a lot of things to be busy with recently, and he also has to deal with 3 girls. Go and shoot archery. Let me see your amazing bow skills again. Having said this, Yosuji Masaki felt completely comfortable, and did not force him to keep it, and handed him the bow. We don't have a location yet, we'll talk about it later. Kurosawa Hikaru took the bow he handed over and looked at the shooting point without walking over. Zuifeng Dojo was very lively. Although it was not overcrowded, there were still more than a dozen disciples. Even though the shooting range is very vast and spacious, and covers a large area, there are only 10 targets. Only 10 people can draw their bows and shoot arrows at the same time, and the rest have to line up next to them. Not long after the words were spoken, the man who drew the bow and shot an arrow at the shooting point left the shooting point after shooting an arrow. There's a place. Even though the seat was not next door to Shifunjin Mirai, Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes lit up and he couldn't help but want to move forward, but after looking at the people in line, he stopped again. But he didn't wait long. As a round of arrows came down, the position was not taken by anyone, and there were more and more vacancies at the shooting point. 1, 2, until finally, only Sifenjayuan Mirai was left at the shooting point. They are generally archers over 30 years old, holding bows and standing aside out of the way. Mr. Kurosawa, please. After waiting for a while, an uncle in his 50s with graying hair on his temples spoke. Mr. Kurosawa, please. This. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little uncomfortable with being treated so specially. At this moment, he was pushed on his back, but instead of staggering, he took a step forward and stabilized. Kyoto is a martial art. Although it is not as supreme as other martial arts, strength can still win respect and applause. Everyone wants to see you shoot arrows. You're welcome. Go ahead. The person who pushed him was Yosuji Masaki. Okay. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at him, then at those people, and nodded. Immediately, he walked with a bow and walked to Sifenjayuan's future. Unlike official competitions, there is no need to go through all the cumbersome etiquette at the shooting range. Because the news about this matter was not small, Sifenjayuan Mirai had naturally known about it for a long time. When he came over, he glanced sideways at him. Kurosawa glanced at her and nodded slightly. Needless to say, Sifenjayuan Mirai still had an arrow in his hand and started to move. As originally agreed, the two of them shot arrows together. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 115. Kyoto pays attention to archery posture, conduct, and attitude. Just like this, when two people follow the 8 steps of the shooting method and enter a state of concentration with the bowstring fully opened, it is very pleasing to the eye, especially if the man is talented and the woman is beautiful. Pa. Pa. Tuck. Tuck. The two people's archery is very synchronized. It feels good to do something with the person you like, and it always hits the target. The corners of Saifunjayuan Mirai's mouth couldn't stop rising. Smiles are contagious, and Kurosawa noticed her good mood as well. Happy time is very short, because immersing yourself in it will make time pass unconsciously. Miss, it's time. At 5:30 in the afternoon, Sayaka Akai looked at her watch and walked up. Archery is very tiring because every arrow requires full force. Okay, let me change clothes first. Sifenuen Mirai was resting by the wall, nodded and stood up. Kurosawa Hikaru saw the scene and did not follow him. After all, the locker rooms were divided into men and women. Not long after, Sifenuen Mirai came out of the locker room. Different from the heroic appearance in hakama clothes, she put on a simple and elegant dress, with black silk like a waterfall, draped behind her. She has a slender and tall figure, holding a black designer bag in her hand, and wearing a pair of pure white. The socks that wrap around the ankles look so cute. Dressed like this, her temperament changed back to that cool and elegant young lady. As for Sayaka Akai, she followed behind her, carrying a bag in her hand, and a long pole more than 2 meters long, wrapped in a strip of cloth on her back, which was a wajiu. Everyone, brothers and sisters, I will say goodbye to the teacher and go back in the future. When Sifenjayuan walked to the middle of the venue, he turned around and faced everyone in the venue, bowing slightly. Her voice is pleasant, cold and clear. Seeing her leaving, everyone was used to it and waved goodbye. Are you going back? At this moment, Sato Shinichi came to the dojo. Teacher, come back next Sunday for your guidance. Finding that he appeared without having to look for it himself, Sifenjayuan Mirai nodded slightly and said, Bon voyage. Sato Shinichi stood with his arms folded and nodded. Kurosawa, this is my mobile phone number. After the formal farewell, Shifunjin Mirai did not leave, but walked up to Kurosawa Hikaru, thrust a note into his hand, and whispered. Isn't it line? Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at it, a little surprised. Mother won't let me download this kind of software. Sifenjayuan shook his head slightly. In the future. It's so strict. Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but sigh. Shifunjin Mirai did not comment on this. She turned back and glanced at Sayaka Akai, then stood on tiptoes and approached him, put her mouth to his ear, and whispered. And I will never accept 3 people doing that kind of thing together. Turning a blind eye to your philandering is the limit. Okay, these whispered words made Kurosawa light up and nodded. In fact, he hasn't even thought of this level yet. After all, there is still a long way to go. Goodbye. After reaching a consensus, Sifenjayuan Mirai waved his hands and bowed slightly. Goodbye. Seeing her saying goodbye so formally, Kurosawa Hikaru was also affected and bowed slightly. After saying that, she turned around and walked towards Sayaka Akai, and then walked towards the door together. Watching the master and the servant leave, the moment of farewell has arrived. Kurosawa Hikaru was speechless, feeling very emotional and a little reluctant to leave. It has to be said that although today's date was restricted in every aspect, the spiritual communication made him understand the future of Sifenjayuan better. Thinking about it carefully, he and Xiaoyuki had been in such a situation on the first day they met. In contrast, he has never had a heart-to-heart talk with Miss Ninomiya or talked about the past. Aren't you going together? After watching the two people leave, Sato Shinichi came to Kurosawa Hikari's side. Because I want to talk to you. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head, looked at the old man who was old but still imposing, and said. He still didn't know many things about archery, and he needed his help if he wanted to be recognized by the future grandfather of Sifenun. Okay, let's go to the tea room. Seeing that he was willing to stay and chat with her, Sato Shinichi's serious face suddenly smiled, and he was extremely welcoming. Let's go together, Yosuji-sensei. Kurosawa nodded, then looked aside. Next time, it's a bit late. My wife and daughter are still waiting for me to go back for dinner. However, Yosuji Masaka did not agree and explained. After exchanging a few pleasantries, I bid him farewell. Leaving the dojo, Kurosawa Hikaru and Sato Shinichi walked along the wooden corridor of the mansion and came to a tea room with tatami mats. As he sat down, a young woman in kimono soon knelt down in front of the door and opened the door. Excuse me. Then, she walked in carrying a tea set and made tea for the two of them. You're welcome. Sit down wherever you want. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. But after you finish asking, it will be my turn. Sato Shinichi's sitting posture was very casual, standing on one knee. Although there was an age difference, his attitude seemed to be that he regarded Kurosawa Hikari as a peer. I want to be a fanshi, what should I do? Kurosawa sat down cross-legged and got straight to the point. Have you made up your mind? Seeing his attitude, Sato Shinichi was a little happy. Yes, if possible, I would like to become a fanshi within a few years. Kurosawa nodded, very concerned about the 4-year deadline. Maybe life is still very long, but some things wait for no one. Actually, you don't need to be so anxious, and you can't be in a hurry. Realizing that he wanted to be a fanshi as soon as he came up, and within a few years, Sato Shinichi comforted him. Kyudo is the most elegant martial art. You don't fight with others, but compete with yourself. Be immersed in restraint and don't be impatient. Although this young man has extraordinary archery skills, his mental state is not tempered enough. He gets anxious when things happen, which is normal for a young man. The stakes are high. Hikaru Kurosawa is not an impatient character, explained. Do you know anything about the classification of martial arts? Sato Shinichi was aware of his situation, but he was still calm. Not much. Kurosawa Hikaru has done little research on these. Sato Shinichi was not surprised by this, because he had talked with Shuji Rokudan and immediately began to explain. Kyudo is the same as other martial arts, with grades from 1 to 5 and grades from 1st to 10. Above that, there are alchemists, priests, and the highest title of fanshi. To be given the title of Buddhist monk, one must be at least 6th level of Kyudo, make known one's status as a Kyudo, attend classes, receive a certificate of completion, and possess knowledge of arches, judging methods, instructional methods, etc., practical skills, and recognized abilities, as well as there are papers proposing stipulated principles in his own handwriting. So complicated? Kurosawa Hikaru did not expect that he would be required to publish a paper after being evaluated. It is even more difficult to upgrade from an alchemist to a priest. You need to be rated as an alchemist for 5 years, with personality, skills, knowledge, experience, and excellent guidance capabilities. At this level, you can officially create your own dojo. I don't have that much time. Kurosawa Hikaru frowned when he heard this 5 years. Under normal circumstances, according to the rules, it takes at least 15 years to be rated as a fanshi. Are there any exceptions? Kurosawa Hikaru was shocked. He didn't expect fanshi's requirements to be so harsh, and he suddenly realized how powerful the old man in front of him was. Not currently, but it may not be possible. Rules can be broken. The corners of Sato Shinichi's mouth slightly raised, and his old eyes looked at the young man with light. What should I do? Actually, you don't need to care too much about the title of fanshi. With your strength and potential, it's just a matter of time. As for the issues you care about, as long as you show enough potential, it will be enough for you to get what you want. What's the meaning? You don't need to be a fanchi to be recognized. You can achieve your potential and strength. Just like today, I don't need to say more. You just impressed my students with 2 arrows. You mean? Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikari was moved and felt something. I will bring my old friends to watch the finals of the archery competition during the summer vacation. You must perform well then. Sato Gen nodded, confirmed his guess, and said with a smile. It's that simple. It's not that simple, but I can help you with many things. Why are you helping me like this? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised and didn't quite understand. You know, Neon is a very cold social ecology, and it is normal for everyone to sweep away the snow in front of the door. Moreover, when he first came to the dojo, he was offended by Sato Ninth Dan. Although he later reconciled his hatred, it was really unjustifiable for the other party to help him like this. Cherishing talent? It's a bit arrogant to say this. It should be said that it is expectation and pampering. Expectation and pampering. Kurosawa Hikaru felt that this sentence was quite contradictory and strange. Isn't pampering more arrogant than cherishing talent? Your talent is rare. I really want to see how far you can go on the road of archery. As for those thorns and obstacles, I will help you sweep away. Favoring is for the future. I am not afraid to say it. I treat her as half a granddaughter and hope she can be happy. Seeing his expression, Sato Shinichi added. After living for so many years, he could tell at a glance that the future kid liked Kurosawa Hikaru very much. Since it's not that she's not a good match, but that she's a talented man and a beautiful woman, why doesn't he support her? I see. Only then did Kurosawa Hikaru understand that the favor he was talking about was referring to the future of Shifunji Yuan, not himself. Going back to the issue of archers, outstanding contributors often receive special treatment. If you can establish a sect, declare a name for archery, pave the way for archery, and strive for glory for archery, and if I join forces with other disciples, it is possible breaking the rules. Is it just possible? It may not be realistic to become a priest in a few years, but I can help you become a priest and let you open a dojo. Can we not open a dojo? Kurosawa Hikaru realized that just performing well in the competition would be enough, and he immediately wanted to save trouble. Why not open a dojo? Opening a dojo is very profitable. Sato Shinichi did not expect that he would react like this. He was stunned and simply talked about reality. How profitable is it? Kurosawa Hikaru didn't understand this. I have 231 students, and there are more than 2,000 disciples of the Chuifeng Dojo, scattered all over the country. Among the dozen students you saw today, several are executives of listed companies, politicians, and even presidents. Just the donations from students to the dojo, guess how much each year? Not sure. 1.5 billion, this is just their donations, not counting the various authorized stores under the name of the Chuifeng Dojo. Seeing that he didn't understand, Sato Shinichi curled his lips and said. Is Kyoto so profitable? Kurosawa Mitsuru was a little surprised. Although the denomination of the Japanese yen is relatively large, 1.5 billion is not a small amount. Money is something outside of the body, the key is status and reputation. Sato Shinichi was not lying, because Kyoto, as the most elegant martial arts, has long become an aristocratic sport today, and there is no shortage of money. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 116. Fame and Status. Kurosawa Hikaru was thoughtful after hearing these 2 points. To be honest, These two things are quite imaginary and not practical enough. Perhaps I am not as good as my students when it comes to money, but everyone who sees me will respectfully call me teacher. With my connections, no matter where I go, people will greet me with courtesy, and what I want to do is very simple. But if I open a dojo, won't I compete with you for students? Hearing about the connections, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little moved, but he also had concerns. In fact, Sato Shinichi's change in attitude made him respect Sato Ninth Dan, so he didn't want to let the other party suffer. If he really opened a dojo, with his perfect archery skills, it would not be easy to recruit students. As I said just now, money is something external to the body. Your potential is very high, and you are still so young. Neon's future archery depends on you to lead it. I'll think about it. Can I become a priest without opening a dojo? Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and asked. Yes, but if you become a priest but don't open a monastery, don't you feel that you are sitting on a treasure mountain without knowing it? Indeed. Besides, since you are partnering with me in the future and want to open a dojo, my old friends will definitely help me. Anyway, if you have any trouble in the future, you can talk to me. I still have a large network of connections. How can I repay you for helping me so much? Seeing him talking more and more, Kurosawa Hikaru felt flattered. How could he be so virtuous? If you can make archery flourish, it will be a reward. And I help you because I want to be your friend. Friends. Come to me from time to chat, have a heart-to-heart talk, drink and taste tea. If you are with the future, you can be regarded as my half-grandson-in-law. The future called me grandpa when he was a child. Then don't I have to call you grandpa? Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru always felt something was wrong and couldn't help but say. Although I respected this ninth Dan Kyoto man, he suddenly became his grandson-in-law, and his seniority plummeted. It's okay if you want to, and it doesn't matter if you don't want to. We can talk about our own affairs. I'll call you brother, and you can call me Shinichi brother. Seeing his weird expression, Sato Shinichi was amused. Brother Shinichi. Kurosawa Mitsuki savored the title. After all, I'm over 70 years old, so it's not too much for you to call me brother, right? Seeing that he was still thinking, Sato Shinichi patted his chest and glared. Not too much at all. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head. As long as he didn't call him grandpa, everything else was easy. Brother, do you have any questions? After deciding the matter, Sato Shinichi asked kindly. Temporarily unavailable. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and shook his head. What he wanted to ask Sato Kyuden for advice was how to become a Norshi and be recognized by the future grandfather of Shifunjin. Since you have no questions, it's Shinichi's turn. Finally, when he finished asking, Sato Shinichi rubbed his hands, a little impatient. Good. You know very little about the etiquette of Raizukiryu, but your archery skills are so superb. Which school do you belong to when you enter a palace? Who is your master? Sato Shinichi was very curious about this matter. I don't have any school, I just practiced it myself. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't know what genre he belonged to, but he had already thought of a way to say it. Your shooting form is so good. You don't have a master, so you just rely on yourself to practice. Sato was stunned and said with an unbelievable look on his face. The moment I picked up the bow for the first time, it was like my body instinctively knew how to hold it. And the moment I knocked the arrow and aimed it, I felt that the arrow would definitely hit. Kurosawa nodded, lowered his head and looked at his hands, speaking firmly. This was the rhetoric he came up with, blaming the problem on talent. After all, talent is something that goes against common sense. Hiss, if this is true, then your talent is even more terrifying than I imagined. Realizing that he had reached this level just by practicing casually, Sato Shinichi took a breath. He spent an afternoon chatting with Shujiro Kyuden. This guy reported to the Kyoto Club in Tokyo for the first time last week. He didn't even know the 8 steps of archery or the etiquette of Kyoto, but he was invincible in his archery skills and hit the bullseye with one arrow. Just by demonstrating once, he can learn the shooting pattern in a precise manner. Concerning this situation, he originally thought that Kurosawa Hikaru was a martial arts warrior, a riding warrior, and had first come into contact with the ritual warriors, so he had the current doubts. But now it seems that this young man is simply a genius who is naturally suitable for archery. Actually, I rarely do archery. I only go back to my hometown to play occasionally, because it's not interesting if I always hit the target, and my dad wants me to study hard. Kurosawa Hikaru began to blame the situation and explained his situation. Have you never thought about surviving with Kyoto? I've never done it before, just archery by myself. My dad didn't allow me to join the club, so I didn't have a chance. Your dad is really, forget it, no matter what, you have a chance now, so you can no longer ignore Kyoto. Sato Shinichi was so angry that he originally wanted to curse, but out of self-cultivation and character, he held back, became a little excited, and warned him seriously. If this guy's talent is really that terrifying, maybe he can lead Jalio to unprecedented heights. For a moment, he seemed to see the rise of archery. This brother became a legend and left his name in history. During that period of history, my brother may also mention that he was helped by his brother when he was young, which has become a legend that will last forever. New. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't know that he was thinking about helping him leave his name in Kingshi. Seeing how serious he was, he nodded. In any case, brother Shinichi has been so helpful. Even if you don't mean to do as you are told, at least you should have a good attitude and don't let others down. Kurosawa Hikaru was left to have a dinner and rest for a while before he was able to walk out of the Feng Chai dojo. So enthusiastic. Kurosawa Hikaru looked back at this huge ancient-style mansion with lingering fear. Brother Shinichi is so passionate, he just has to make an alliance with blood. He wanted to go home, and Sato Shinichi called the driver to take him off. Considering that it was not good to continue receiving favors from others, he refused, saying that he had someone to pick him up. Is it 8 o'clock? Kurosawa Hikaru took out his phone and looked at the time and found that there was a message. Some were sent by Xiaoyuki, but also Miss Runa. Proficient level piano, I hope everything goes well. Because he hadn't settled down yet, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't click in to see the details. Instead, he put his phone back in his pocket and started walking. It's better not to play with your phone while walking. It's not too late to chat slowly until you get in the car or get home. This morning, he also asked a lot about financing for starting a company. For example, why it was necessary to invest 100 million at the beginning. According to Ms. Ninomiya, more investment means more returns. It is true that he can rent a recording studio, a piano, and a camera, and start working directly without much funding. But first impressions are important, and investing a little more can differentiate him from ordinary pianists. Ms. Runa said that the label of an artist is very important. If people have a high-class impression of you, then you can receive top endorsements. If people have a down-to-earth impression of you, then you can only receive some small endorsements. In any case, Kurosawa Hikaru truly felt their support and trust, and all he had to do was live up to this expectation. When Kurosawa Hikaru returned home, it was already close to 9 o'clock. Crash. After entering the bathroom and washing his face, Kurosawa regained his energy. I was pulled out early in the morning and didn't go home until this time. I was really tired after running around all day. Throwing himself onto the bed, Kurosawa Hikaru took out his cell phone. Brother Guang, I have registered on Twitter, look. Screenshot of account page. What to do next? Are you busy? Dinner is ramen, Lan, and I will go together. I'm home. The message from Xiaoyuki was sent at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She probably met Xianai and worked together. He knew about this because he chatted with Xiaoyuki on the way out from Ms. Runa's house, took a taxi to buy finger protection, and then went to Zui Feng Dojo. She was very active in sending messages and reported her situation. "I'm home too." Kurosawa Hikaru sent the message after reading it. "It's so late. What are you busy with?" The next moment, the message came back instantly, and Xiaoyuki was a little curious. "The secret, you will know next week." Kurosawa thought for a while and then wrote. Because the next date is for photography, he has to buy a camera this week. It should be a surprise for Xiaoyuki to be the photographer then. "Hey, tell me." Yuki was very curious. Just looking at her words, he seemed to be able to imagine her cute appearance of twisting her body and acting coquettishly. "The secret is a secret. You'll find out on Saturday. Don't worry." "Saturday? I'll have to take leave then." "Take a day." "Uh-huh. I'm going to take a shower first, and I'll video chat with you later." After calming her down, Kurosawa decided to take a break first. "Okay." After learning about the video, Yuki Ichinos agreed without hesitation. After chatting here, Kurosawa Hikaru closed the chat page with her and opened another page, which was Igarashi Runa's page. "We have rented a room, and the recording studio will start to be renovated tomorrow. We also found the piano. It is completely new and packaged. You will definitely like it. It should be almost ready by Wednesday. I will pick you up and unpack it together." "Why didn't you reply to the message? What were you busy with?" See the message back. Information. The message she sent was very straightforward. Kurosawa glanced at it and responded without seeing anything inappropriate. "You deserve a beating, don't you? Why are you replying to this message so late?" After about a minute, the message was read, and Igarashi Runa was speechless. "Going to join the club? Didn't you join the club? Chizuru said you were in the homecoming club. Joined the Kyoto club last week." Kurosawa Hikaru felt that it was necessary to talk about this matter first. After all, he had to spare at least 3 days to compete during the summer vacation, otherwise it would be difficult to explain when the time comes. And Miss Ninomiya gave him the contact information of Mr. Yosuji, so he couldn't hide this. "At this critical moment when we are starting a business, do you still have the heart to join the club? It's good to show up occasionally, and learning Kyoto is beneficial to cultivate temperament." "That's right, men who learn Kyoto look quite gentle." Igarashi Runa accepted the statement. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 117. While chatting with Igarashi Runa, Kurosawa Hikaru did not forget to send a message to Miss Ninomiya. Although she was not like Xiaoyuki, who would always report her schedule, she did not take the initiative to send a message. "I'm back home. What did you do with Mr. Yosuji in the afternoon?" On the other side, Ninomiya Chizuru, who had already returned home, finally waited for the message and immediately couldn't help asking. "I joined the Kyoto club and need to buy bows. I called to ask for advice." "Kyoto club? Why did you start to join the club?" "I practiced for a while before. I mentioned it to Yoda Miyazaki by chance. He said there was a Kyoto club at the University of Tokyo and asked me to go and take a look. I took a look and was pulled into the club." "Will you be too busy? You have to be an artist, study, work part-time, and join the club. The Kyoto club is very relaxed. You don't need to go there often. Go to bed early. You woke up early today and have classes tomorrow. Okay, good night." "Good night." It seems nothing went wrong. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her reply and read it carefully again. He was relieved immediately. Doing so many things at the same time is indeed very busy, but if you divide the time well, it's still okay. Fortunately, Miss Ninomiya is not as clingy as Yuki, otherwise she would be too busy. After saying good night to each other, he chatted with Igarashi Runa for about 10 minutes and soon stopped chatting. After all, there was nothing ambiguous about his relationship with Miss Runa. They were just friends and now partners. Even if there was a lot to say, they were both busy all day and tired. After dealing with the two people, he picked up his phone and wanted to video chat with Xiaoyuki, but before clicking, he suddenly reacted. He ran into the bathroom, turned on the shower and washed his hair, and then dried it with a towel to make himself look like he had taken a bath. After making enough preparations, he turned on the video. From 9 o'clock, he chatted with her until 10:30, and as Xiaoyuki yawned, they said good night to each other. Huh. After the video chat, Kurosawa Hikaru breathed a sigh of relief, and his whole body was relaxed. He lay on the floor. He got up, took off his clothes, threw them into the washing machine, took a serious hot bath, and changed into pajamas. He sat on the bed and wiped his hair with a towel, and then used a hairdryer to blow dry his hair. Halfway through the hair drying, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly remembered something, picked up his phone and opened the address book, found the name of Shifunjayuan Mirai, and sent her a text message. Good night. The content of his message was very concise, and he didn't dare to write too much to avoid mistakes. Good night. The message was quickly replied. The other party was the same, without any extra words. Ha! Seeing this reply, Kurosawa Hikaru put down his phone, yawned, and continued to blow dry his hair. Connecting the phone to the charging cable, turning on the air conditioner, and drying his hair, he climbed onto the bed and covered himself with the quilt, and his eyelids closed heavily, and he fell asleep without waiting. Life is too fulfilling, there are many things to do every day, and it is impossible to suffer from insomnia. Monday 8:30 in the morning, Kurosawa Hikaru arrived in the classroom. With a greeting, he sat down and waited for class. Kurosawa, you are in a good mood today. Miyazaki Yuta saw his state and couldn't help saying. Since Kurosawa Hikaru apologized for his broken heart, he always felt that he had completely changed. Confident, indifferent, a smile began to appear on that face. This smile is not an obvious smile, but an inadvertent expression, like a person in a good mood, with soft facial lines. Not bad. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded. The feeling of doing good things is satisfaction from the inside out. Yesterday, I made up my mind to lend a helping hand to Shifunjayuan Mirai. Although I haven't really achieved the result yet, things are moving in a good direction. It's great, dating a rich woman. Seeing his smug look, Miyazaki Yuta lay on the table, unable to help but mutter and envy. Even after a weekend, he could still remember the beautiful rich woman with silver gray short hair, extraordinary temperament, beautiful appearance, hot body, fashionable clothes, leaning against the luxury car. As a friend, he sincerely hopes that Kurosawa Hikaru will live a good life, but this is too good, and he is so envious. Indeed. Kurosawa Hikaru knew that he was referring to Miss Runa on Friday, but he didn't deny it and smiled. To be honest, he did date a rich woman yesterday. Aren't you afraid of Ninomiya, teacher? Seeing that he was so brave to admit it, Miyazaki Yuta reminded. Why should you be afraid of her? Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard this, a little puzzled. Although before they met as friends, Mr. Ninomiya was indeed quite scary as a teacher because of his cold and serious personality. But after a date and a few meetings after school, he completely changed his mind. Miss Ninomiya is a typical cold outside hot inside hot and very jealous person. She is a big sister, but she is very cute. Last Friday, the news that you were picked up by a rich woman in a luxury car after school has spread throughout the school. You are not only a celebrity in the economics department, but also a big celebrity in the whole school. Finding that he had not yet realized the seriousness of the problem, Yuta Miyazaki explained. There is such a thing. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. No wonder this morning, the schoolgirls who usually stayed on the road stopped saying hello to him, and the looks in other people's eyes at him were also quite varied. Don't look at me. I didn't say that. When you were picked up, several people saw it. Looking at him with surprised eyes, Yuta Miyazaki quickly abdicated his responsibility. I didn't doubt you. Did you delete her as a friend? Kurosawa Hikaru noticed the situation, but was not worried and asked instead. The person who picked him up at that time was Miss Runa. She and Miss Ninomiya were close friends and had known about it for a long time. It was obviously impossible to ask him to accuse him. It was not a problem at all. In addition, even at a school like Tokyo University, the teachers will not care about your love issues. Even if he became a big celebrity, it wouldn't bring him any trouble, but he was a little bit cleaner. For example, the schoolgirls thought he had a girlfriend and stopped looking for him. Deleted. Bringing up the old matter again, Yuta Miyazaki nodded. That's okay, life is still long, and you will meet the next good girl in the future. Kurosawa patted him on the shoulder and encouraged him. Compared with this, I would like to ask you for advice on how to fall in love with such a beautiful rich woman. Miyazaki Yuta hesitated for a long time, and finally made up his mind because of this matter. He discovered that Kurosawa Hikaru was a master of love, and what he said was absolutely correct. I can't explain the relationship thing, as for the method, I think it's courage. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't even fall in love with Igarashi Runa, so there was no secret at all. After thinking about it, he answered. Courage. You take a step toward the other party, and only if the other party responds does it begin. Kurosawa Hikaru also has experience based on his experiences these days. Whether it was Xiaoyuki, Miss Ninomiya, or Mirai Shifunjian, it was only after he mustered up the courage to take a step forward that the relationship became as good as it is now. When Xiaoyuki extended an invitation to him, he actually wanted to refuse. After all, he has no intention of accompanying a hot girl JK to karaoke and playing pretend boyfriend games. He might as well study hard and work hard to make money after graduation. But when he actually took that step and went for the appointment, he realized what a good girl Xiaoyuki was. I see. If you still have no results after taking 99 steps, you have to turn back. How do you know you've taken 99 steps? You have been chasing a girl for a long time. If the girl still doesn't agree to you, it means that the girl doesn't like you. Understood. After writing these words down, Yuta Miyazaki came to an understanding. Not long after, it was time for class. It was almost time for class, and Chizuru Ninomiya walked into the classroom wearing a shirt, a tight black skirt, and high heels. Step by step, she walked to the podium and began to inspect the classroom. Good morning. When her eyes came to him, Kurosawa greeted her with his mouth. This small movement made Chizuru Ninomiya's eyes stay on him for a few seconds longer, and she quickly understood the shape of his mouth and words. But when she figured it out, she found that the students in the classroom were looking at her, and seemed to have noticed that she was staring at Kurosawa. Realizing this situation, Ninomiya Chizuru was a little flustered and guilty. She reached out and fiddled with her long hair, pretending that nothing happened, and continued her patrol. After seeing all the students, because there was still a little time before class, she took out her mobile phone and operated it for a while, then put it on the podium. Immediately afterwards, Kurosawa Hikaru's cell phone vibrated slightly, and he took it out and took a look. It was a message from Ninomiya Chizuru. Don't do this little trick in school. As soon as he read the message, Kurosawa Hikaru saw Yuta Miyazaki next to him. He was looking at this side with some curiosity, but did not come closer. He obviously knew how to behave and knew that some privacy should not be prying into. You are the one. Don't send me messages in class. It will be bad if others see you. Seeing this embarrassing message, Kurosawa Hikaru felt helpless and replied. He just said hello, Who would have thought that Miss Ninomiya would stare at him for so long? In contrast, her little act of sending messages in person is really prone to problems. To be on the safe side, when I go to buy a camera tonight, I'll buy a privacy screen as well. After this situation, Kurosawa Hikaru thought thoughtfully and added one more thing to his purchase list. Girlfriend's information. After he finished replying, Yoda Miyazaki asked curiously. Right. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned when he heard this, glanced at Ninomiya Chizuru on the podium calmly, and nodded with a smile. So good. Miyazaki Yoda was so envious when she saw his smile. During lunch break, while eating in the cafeteria, Ninomiya Chizuru replied. You were the one who made the little move first. I was wrong, I won't say hello to you again. Kurosawa Hikaru was eating rice bowl, and when he saw this reply, he responded. The reason why he likes rice bowls is because Nihon's Japanese food has a lighter taste, and the food is mixed together, making it easier to eat. It's not like I'm apologizing, it's just that you can't do that in school. A few minutes later, as if after some mental struggle, Ninomiya Chizuru sent another message. Obviously, not saying hello to her at all wouldn't do either. Good. Seeing this, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled, and then agreed. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 118. Considering the weekend date, Kurosawa Hikari needed to make some preparations. The day's class ended at 5 p.m. As school was over, he left school alone, took the subway, searched on his mobile phone, and headed to Shinjuku City. The place he chose to go to was Yodobashi, a large electrical appliance store that mainly sells various household appliances, including photographic equipment. Entering the mall, he walked all the way and quickly found the store. After all, the camera store is very conspicuous, with displays in the windows. What does the guest want to buy? As soon as I entered the store, I was greeted by a male clerk. Asked very enthusiastically. I want to buy a SLR camera. When Kurosawa saw a store clerk, he showed his intention without fear. Please follow me. Upon hearing this request, the clerk nodded slightly and guided him with a smile. Customers who want to buy a SLR are all distinguished customers. After all, the price of a SLR is generally higher. Please take a look first to see if there is anything you like. I will introduce it to you in detail at that time. Soon, the clerk took him into an area where a variety of SLR cameras were displayed in the window. Can you pick it up and read it? Seeing so many cameras, Kurosawa was a bit dazzled and decided to choose carefully. What's more troublesome is that because the task has not been completed, his entry-level photography has not yet become a permanent reward, so he has no experience or theoretical concepts in photography. To be more precise, his experience in taking pictures is almost zero. He only took a few selfies when he was dating online not long ago. Yes, most products also support trial shooting. The clerk stood aside and responded positively. After receiving this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru felt relieved. As long as he can touch the camera, even if it is an experience card, the skill will be triggered, which may give him some reference standards. Looking around, he didn't have much idea about the brand. He only felt that each one looked very handsome. Soon, he locked a camera, a Nikon brand, and asked the store clerk to take it out for him. With the acquisition of a SLR camera, Hikaru Kurosawa feels quite light in his hand, which may be due to his strong arm strength. In any case, actually touching the camera made his body feel. After turning on the camera, he started to try it out. He didn't even shoot, he just saw the world through the lens. Just as he was looking around with the camera, a figure suddenly broke into the lens and focused automatically. She was a slender girl with long snow-white hair, fair skin, and slender hands and feet. Even if her face and body were profiled, she looked as beautiful as a painting. Her clothes were excellent and her temperament was outstanding. Being targeted by the camera, the white-haired girl noticed and looked over. Click. The moment she suddenly looked back, the sound of the shutter sounded. This is Kurosawa's instinct as a photographer, a subconscious shooting. After doing this, Kurosawa reacted and put down the camera in embarrassment. The sound of the SLR shooting was clear, sweet, and obvious, and the girl he captured in the shot came over. The two sides looked at each other in the air with a distance of about 6 meters. She has slender eyebrows like a willow moon, eyelashes like a cattail fan, a small and delicate nose, budding cherry lips, an oval face, and her facial features are flawless without any makeup, and she has a childish face that is absolutely beautiful and stunning. She was wearing a snow-white dress, and her temperament was as holy as a blooming snow lotus, slender and pure as snow, dust-free. Miki-senpai. As they came face to face, seeing her clear and beautiful light blue eyes that were like ice and snow, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly recognized this girl's identity. At this year's entrance ceremony, this girl took the stage to speak as a freshman representative. The moment this girl entered school, she was directly named the school beauty. It was not without reason, because she looked so stunning, like a princess from a fairy tale. Who are you? Mikibayu was a little surprised when he was secretly photographed, and when he heard this title, he became even more confused. Sorry, I was testing the camera just now, and you suddenly walked into the camera. I couldn't help but take the picture. I deleted it immediately after Kurosawa recognized her. He also apologized for his behavior. Secretly filming others in neon, even if it is straight up and not from a weird angle, is still a very bad behavior. It doesn't matter, you just called me junior sister, are you from Dongda University too? Mikibayu shook his head slightly, not paying much attention to the shooting, but soon became a little curious. It is quite unusual to meet an alumnus outside the school. After all, the school is very big, and even if you meet someone, you may not know who they are. After all, Tokyo University does not have school uniforms. As long as you dress formally, you can't be identified by uniform clothes. Do not you know me? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised to find that she didn't recognize him. According to Miyazaki Yuta, didn't this Miki-senpai think of inviting him to a social gathering? What else could he say? As long as he goes, Miki will go, because he feels that she is interested in him. I'm sorry, should I recognize you? Mikibayu was a little embarrassed when he heard this, and his tone was weak. Miyazaki Yuta, you will die tomorrow. Seeing this reaction, Kurosawa Hikaru was really embarrassed to death and couldn't help but curse in his heart. It's not necessary to know me. I'm Hikaru Kurosawa, a second-year economics major at Tokyo University. Realizing that the other party didn't know him at all, let alone talking about anything interesting, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head and said his name with a forced smile. Are you Kurosawa-senpai from the economics department? Upon hearing this self-introduction, Mikibayu was immediately impressed. This is a big celebrity, and many classmates are talking about it this morning. No wonder the other party would say, don't you know me? She really couldn't keep up with everyone's conversation. Looking back carefully, everyone's discussion seems to be that Kurosawa-senpai has a rich girlfriend who drives a luxury car. She is also super beautiful, knows how to dress well, and has a great temperament. Yes, Kurosawa was slightly relieved when he discovered that she had heard of him. Kurosawa-senpai, does he know anything about photography? After confirming that he was an alumnus, Mikibayu saw the camera in his hand and asked curiously. Know a little. Kurosawa Hikaru is not pretending to be cool or pretending to be a pig to eat the tiger, to be honest. His skills haven't become permanent yet, they are just experience cards. He doesn't have much theoretical knowledge, and it can't even be considered a beginner. At most, he subconsciously knows how to adjust parameters and shoot after encountering a camera. Kurosawa-senpai, can you help me choose a camera? After finding a schoolmate in such a strange place, Miki Bayu asked after thinking about it. I don't understand it very well. If you don't mind it, I can help you take a look. Considering that he accidentally took a secret photo of someone just now, even though it was not a sneak shot up the skirt, Kurosawa Hikaru was still a little embarrassed and nodded in agreement. I want a camera that can record videos from a long distance, has an autofocus function, and can capture figure skating practice, but I don't know what kind of camera is suitable. Miki Bayu got his consent, walked over, and expressed his troubles. Figure skating practice? What's your budget? Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at her, a little surprised. Figure skating, does it mean figure skating? Unexpectedly, this schoolgirl is also good at skating. She is quite petite, about less than 1.6 meters tall, a little shorter than Xiaoyuki, but has a good temperament, and she must have been trained in figure skating. However, to record the independent practice of figure skating, the requirements are not low. After all, figure skating is very fast, otherwise long-distance photography is required. It's about 1 million. This is the budget my mother gave me. I'm here to take a look this time. I'll bring her to buy next time. Miki Bayu thought about it for a while and then said a little embarrassedly. This was also the reason why she wanted to ask Kurosawa-senpai for help. Because this time I came to take a look first, not to buy directly, so I was embarrassed to bother the store clerk, and she didn't know much about cameras, so she needed to ask a lot of questions. With such a high budget, it's quite easy to buy a DSLR that meets your requirements. Don't worry. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that she was quite thin-skinned, so he smiled and comforted her. When he was looking for a camera just now, he saw the price. Some cameras that looked good in quality generally cost several 100,000 yen. 1 million was enough to buy most SLRs. Thank you Kurosawa-senpai. Miki Bayu nodded, bowed his head and thanked. Don't be so polite, let me choose for you first. Seeing how polite she was, Kurosawa waved his hand. It was an opportunity for him to look at different cameras. Thank you Kurosawa-senpai. Realizing that he had to help himself first, Miki Bayu didn't know how to repay, so he could only say thank you. Wait a minute, I'll delete the photo first. Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that her politeness seemed to be due to her personality, so he did not force her to relax and just said. After that, he picked up the camera again and started operating it, trying to delete the finished product that he had just subconsciously shot. However, when he saw the photo, he was stunned. Should it be said that his shooting skills are too good, or that Miki Shiraha is too photogenic? The finished product was excellent. Looking back at Miki Shiryu, it was so beautiful that it looked like a painting or a work of art. It looked extremely stunning. Perhaps it was due to his photography skills, or perhaps it was his pity for beautiful things. When Kurosawa looked at this photo, he felt reluctant to delete it. The photo you just took? Can I see it? As he lowered his head to operate, Miki Bayu was a little curious. Certainly. Kurosawa nodded and handed it to her. Kurosawa-senpai's photography skills are so amazing. After taking the camera, Miki Bayu picked it up and took a look, and his beautiful eyes suddenly widened. Because of her figure skating, she has had a lot of experience being photographed, but it is rare that she is photographed so well. The artistic conception, atmosphere, angle, light, lens, distance, and characters are all just right. It looks amazing and beautiful. My photography skills are pretty good, mainly because you were so beautiful at that moment. Kurosawa shrugged. He just adjusted the angle and pressed the shutter. There was no technical content. Hearing these words, Miki Bayu was stunned. She was already thin-skinned and couldn't help but blush. Although she was often praised for her beauty, it was still quite embarrassing to praise her in person. Kurosawa-senpai, you have a girlfriend, you can't praise other girls like this. Immediately, Miki Bayu, who was a little embarrassed, raised his head and reminded. Feel sorry. Kurosawa Hikaru felt embarrassed when he saw her. After thinking about it, he felt that it was not a good idea to say that and made people feel embarrassed, so he nodded. Although he doesn't have a girlfriend yet, it seems so to others. However, he didn't explain this matter in detail. After all, he has been involved with many girls. If there are more, it will be difficult to deal with. His encounter with this schoolgirl is just a casual encounter, and it is estimated that there will be no intersection in the future. On the first day of the release, 5 updates are sent. Today is my birthday. I hope to have a good result. In addition, the number of chapters in the first chapter is wrong. I am too nervous. I will correct it tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 119. Kurosawa Senpai, can you give me this photo? Mickey Bai wanted this photo a little bit, maybe he could use it in the future, it was a good photo. Then you have to ask the clerk. It's okay with me. Kurosawa Hikaru had no problem with this, after all, the image rights were in his hands. If customers purchase goods in the store, I can develop the photos or send them to your mobile phone. The clerk who was standing by had been paying attention to the situation and explained. This kind of thing is not troublesome, and after observing for a while, he has discovered that these 2 guests are distinguished guests with sufficient budget. According to her request, do you have any model recommendations? Kurosawa Hikaru asked, realizing that he had been listening. Yes, please come with me. The clerk waited for the opportunity to recommend and acted immediately. Because the price of SLR cameras is very high, and there is a dazzling array of them in the store, even if the store clerk introduces them, it is still confusing. After choosing for more than an hour, Mickey Bai made up his mind, selected one, and paid a deposit to let the other party keep the goods. Kurosawa Senpai, thank you very much for your help. It's time for me to go home. After getting an order at the counter and receiving an email with photos on his phone, Mickey Bai turned around and bowed his head to Kurosawa Hikaru to thank him. I have to say that it is much more reassuring to have someone to buy products with, and it is better than being alone and knowing nothing. Buying things is a very troublesome thing. If you spend money to buy something, you will be satisfied, but if you spend money to buy something and suffer a loss, it will be very sad. We are both alumni, so it's a trivial matter, and I've seen so many of them that I know what model I want. Kurosawa Hikaru waved his hand and didn't care. I should go home for dinner, bye. Goodbye. Kurosawa Hikaru waved to her. There is no follow-up action between the two of them, such as leaving contact information, having dinner together, etc. They just keep their distance and end it as soon as they click. After all, Mickey Bai knows that the senior Kurosawa has a girlfriend, and it is not good to be too close to her. As for Kurosawa Hikaru, he feels that he has provoked 3 girls, which is enough for him to have a headache at the moment. Although Mickey Senpai is very beautiful, he has no intention of adding more people. He is not so carefree that he wants to pursue a beautiful girl when he sees her. You must know that a person's advantages and charm are not limited to appearance, but also lie in the inner charm of personality. Watching her walk out of the store, Kurosawa Hikaru said hello to the clerk and continued to make purchases. Because he had seen a lot of cameras, he had already locked in a model and purchased some related equipment to be ready. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru walked out of the store carrying large and small bags. Looks like I have to go home first before coming to Shinjuku. Both hands were filled with equipment. Although it was not heavy, I couldn't free my hands to take more if I wanted to transport it home. Kurosawa Hikaru had a headache. To prepare for the date, he not only had to buy a camera, but also cosmetics. After all, he will help Xiaoyuki complete 3 sets of makeup, and both clothing and cosmetics are indispensable. Are dating tasks getting more and more difficult? Thinking about this week's mission, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but think about the requirements. In fact, every date he goes on is paid for, it's just a matter of more money and less money. For example, the first time I went on a date with Xiaoyuki cost about 100,000, the second time I went to the beach cost about the same, and this time, the third time, it soared to hundreds of thousands, not counting the price of cosmetics and clothes. Although buying these things is long-term and can help Xiaoyuki's career path, it is really a waste of money. As Ninomiya Chizuru said, more investment means more returns. Although it didn't cost much, it was well worth the money spent on Xiaoyuki. Not only could he have a wonderful date with her, but it might also allow Xiaoyuki to officially become a graphic model. Let's go back and study the piano music selection tonight. Suddenly realizing this feeling, Kurosawa Hikaru also made up his mind. He doesn't want to disappoint Miss Ninomiya's expectations and investment, nor does he want to disappoint Miss Runa's determination to bet her career on him. After that, Kurosawa went home and then took the subway to Shinjuku. Compared to the chance encounter when buying a camera, there were no surprises when buying cosmetics and clothes. Although there were a few hiccups, such as a few chats, when he said he was buying cosmetics for his girlfriend, he ran away without hesitation. In addition, he also bought a mobile phone privacy screen so that he doesn't have to worry about others peeking in the future. After getting ready for a weekend date, it was already past 9 p.m. when I got home. After taking a shower, he sat at his desk and began to think about choosing music. Until around 10 o'clock at night, Xiaoyuki sent a message. "Brother Guang, I'm home. Why is it so late today?" Picking up the phone and taking a look at it, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that Xiaoyuki didn't send a message until around 10 o'clock last Monday. "Because I go to the gym. I go to the gym at least twice a week. I usually work out at home. So that's it? Is it convenient to speak?" Convenient. Kurosawa put down his pen and called her directly. "Good night." Soon, the phone was connected to voice, and Xiaoyuki's voice was very energetic. "Good evening. Brother Guang, Lan told me today that he wants to come together on Saturday, is that okay?" After saying hello, Xiaoyuki got down to business. "Does she want to come with you?" Facing this problem, Kurosawa Hikaru fell into thinking. In fact, he had a good impression of Ai Shiina, even though it caused him a little trouble, such as posting a video of him at karaoke on the internet, which in turn attracted the attention of Igarashi Runa. Having said that, in terms of results, it's pretty good so far. Because of that video, he also realized his potential, so he confidently told Miss Runa to let her start a business with him and work hard together. Her boyfriend wasn't coming and she was alone, and she said she wanted to help. Sensing that he was thinking about it, Koyuki explained. "Did you agree?" "No, I haven't asked for your consent yet. Next time, I have a surprise this time, and I plan to share it with you alone." Kurosawa realized that she valued his opinion, so after thinking about it, he still refused. Although he had experienced it before, the woman brought her best friend on a date, but this time the situation was different. "Last time I went to an amusement park, but this time I was working as a photographer." Because he has no experience, he doesn't know what will happen, but he feels that if there is one more person, it will be difficult to use his fists. Surprise. "Okay, I almost forgot about this." Although he was rejected, Xiaoyuki was reminded of this and thought about the surprise again, full of expectations. "What is Brother Guang doing?" then she asked curiously. "Homework, and some preparations." Kurosawa Hikaru didn't hide anything from her. "Then I won't disturb you." I'll tell Lan the good news. Go ahead. At this point, the call ended. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at Line, but there was no information about anyone else. Ms. Ninomiya is not the kind of person who likes to take the initiative to send messages. It may be because she is shy, or she may be worried that if she takes the initiative, her feelings will be too obvious. According to Ms. Runa, she is probably busy preparing various things, and even sending messages is to explain the progress. After confirming that nothing was wrong, Kurosawa Hikaru buried himself in drawing something with his pen. The first video can only succeed, no failure is required. Because he still had the talent of getting started with painting skills, he decided to consider the issue of storyboarding first to ensure that the effect was maximized. After an unknown amount of time, the phone rang again, and it was a text message. I'll see you tomorrow afternoon, good night. The sender was Saifanjayuan Marai. It was 11 o'clock in the evening, which was obviously her bedtime. I'll be there on time, good night. Kurosawa just glanced at it and replied with a smile. Suddenly, he remembered something, and took turns sending good night to Xiaoyuki and Miss Ninomiya. The messages were replied quickly, without too many words, just saying good night to each other. After finishing this matter, he continued to work hard. In addition to storyboarding, he also has to do homework. After all, studies cannot be neglected. It wasn't until 2:30 in the morning that Kurosawa Hikaru finished the day's affairs, brushed his teeth, washed his face and fell asleep. Because he has a relationship with 3 girls, or should I say 4 girls, his life is much more fulfilling than before, and the boring time has completely disappeared. On Tuesday morning, Kurosawa Hikaru arrived at school. As soon as he arrived in the classroom, he was greeted by Yuta Miyazaki, who raised his hand and told him to sit down together. Yuta Miyazaki, you deserve to die. The moment he sat down, Kurosawa Hikaru remembered the embarrassing incident yesterday and gritted his teeth. What's wrong with me? Seeing the angry look on his face, Miyazaki was so confused that he asked innocently. Do you remember what you said before? If I go to a social gathering, Miki-senpai might also go, and she might be interested in me. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at him resentfully. That seems to be the case. Yuta Miyazaki thought about it for a moment and realized that he must have said these words correctly, more than once. From what you said, I thought she knew me. Have you met with Miki-san? I met her when I was walking around the mall. The problem is, I recognized her, but she didn't recognize me. Hearing this, Yuta Miyazaki was a smart person after all, a student at Tokyo University, and he probably guessed the situation. At that time, I found that she didn't know me, and it was very strange. I asked, don't you know me? Do you know what she said? I'm sorry, should I know you? At that time, I wanted to find a hole in the ground and crawl into it. Kurosawa's eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at him and described the situation word for word. Fortunately, because of the fact that he was picked up by Miss Runa, a rich woman, last Friday, his name became famous in the economics department. The whole school knew about it. After hearing this name, Senior Mickey recognized him. Otherwise, he would have died of embarrassment. You can't blame me. It was the senior students in the cultural department who said it. From what they said, I thought that senior students Mickey was interested in you, but I was embarrassed, so I asked them to ask. Miyazaki Yuta learned such a story and hurriedly explained. It wasn't that he was falsely reporting military information, it was just that the schoolgirl was too cunning. Forget it. In your situation, you are so easily deceived by girls. You have to be more cautious when interacting with people in the future. And don't ask me to go to social gatherings in the future. I will refuse them all. Kurosawa Hikaru also knew that he had no ill intentions and was probably deceived by a girl again. He just complained and then warned him. I know. Everyone knows that you have a girlfriend. I guess no one will invite you to socialize. Miyazaki Yuta nodded and then shrugged. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 120. Tuesday's classes ended early. At 4:15 p.m., just like usual, Kurosawa Hikaru arrived at a high-end apartment in the city center on time. Ding! As the elevator arrived, it made a crisp and pleasant sound. The elevator door opened, Kurosawa Hikaru walked out and saw Sayaka Akai. She was still wearing the same maid outfit, her expression was calm, and she looked very old-fashioned and serious. "Good afternoon, Miss Akai." But because of what happened on Sunday, Kurosawa no longer felt alienated from her and smiled slightly. Before that, he and Miss Akai were like wage earners and supervisors. But now, he has discovered that the supervisor is not as strict as he seems on the surface. Mr. Kurosawa seems to be in a good mood. Pass. Akai Sayaka responded, walked forward and extended her hand. "No, do we need routine inspections like this?" Seeing her being so serious, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little depressed, but he still reached for it. "Mr. Kurosawa and the eldest lady have become friends. I have no right to interfere, but please don't forget the task of tutoring. If the eldest lady fails to get into Tokyo University, we will all be held accountable." The distance between the two people was a bit close, less than half a meter. Sayaka Akai took the pass and whispered while looking at it. "I see. And while you're under surveillance, don't act like you're close to me." "Okay." Realizing that she was not unkind, but just worried about something going wrong, Kurosawa nodded. After the routine inspection, Sayaka Akai took him into the study room first, and then went back upstairs to call for someone. Affected by this reminder, Kurosawa Hikaru was very serious in his tutoring class. Although Sifenuen wanted to secretly chat with him in class in the future, he was not in a hurry and patiently attended class. It wasn't until 6 p.m. that Sayaka Akai left the room to prepare dinner at the usual time, and then she had some time to rest. "No wonder you look so nervous today." Sifenjayuan Mirai listened to what he said about the situation when he entered, holding a pen in his hand and snickering. "There are surveillance everywhere, and you have worked hard." Kurosawa Hikaru also pretended to be in class and was really speechless about this house. There are surveillance cameras everywhere in the house, and this desire for control is terrifying. If it were him, he would have suffered from depression a long time ago. "There is no surveillance in my room." Sifenjayuan's future words were suggestive. "We can't enter that place yet." Kurosawa glanced at her and said calmly. "You should really take classes and wait until Sunday when we meet at the dojo to play slowly." Sifenuen nodded slightly in the future, and then said with some expectation. Ever since they met once at Zuifeng Dojo and so many things had happened, she was now looking forward to Sunday even in her dreams. Because there was no surveillance, Ms. Akai would turn a blind eye, letting her float out of the water and breathe fresh air as much as she wanted. "Sunday, I might not be able to go, I have something to do." Noticing her expectant gaze, Kurosawa paused and continued. "You shouldn't be going to accompany someone else, right?" Counting the days and waiting for the future of Sifenjayuan on Sunday, those beautiful eyes are a little jealous. Although she didn't mind his flirting, she couldn't help but accompany her. "It's for my career. I want to be an artist." Kurosawa Hikaru did not deny it, but nodded slightly, which was also a supplement. "You still want to be an artist? Why is it so sudden?" This news dispelled Sifenjayuan's jealous thoughts in the future because it was too impactful. "This happened earlier than Kyoto, but I didn't tell you before. You actually want to be an artist, you must not become an actor." Sifenjayuan Mirai was shocked and couldn't help but say. "Piano musicians and singers, why not actors?" Kurosawa Hikaru had no idea about actors, so he couldn't help but feel curious when he heard her expectations. Even if an actor becomes a national idol, his status is still in jeopardy. Singers and piano musicians are okay, but you can also sing and play the piano? Are you too versatile? Siphon Jayuan explained in the future, but he was also surprised. Excellent, you're about the same. Even though he was talking to her heart to heart, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't say that he had a system and just smiled. In terms of all-round ability, Siphon Jayuan's future will be the same. It can be seen from her usual courses, including dancing, musical instruments, archery, and her academic performance. It is no exaggeration to say that she is a typical example of other children's children, and can be called the king of roles. How long? In terms of singing, it's an entry-level level, and in terms of piano, I think I'm proficient. Play it to me if you get a chance. Hearing that he thought he was proficient again, Siphon Jayuan Murai did not underestimate him this time, and said after thinking about it. I don't need to play it for you. You should be able to hear it next week. I will post the video online and you can listen to it then, Kurosawa explained. If all goes well, the name 0 Hour will become an internet celebrity next week. I want you to play it for me. Seeing that he didn't agree, Siphon Yuan said coquettishly in the future. I will definitely play it to you if I get a chance later. Speaking of which, Kurosawa Hikaru would be too slow if he couldn't guess her thoughts. Obviously, she didn't want to hear the piano music she played at all, but wanted to see herself playing the piano with her own eyes. If we can't do it this week, we will definitely come next week. It's almost summer vacation. Having settled the matter, Siphon Jayuan was a little happy in the future, and then he remembered something and warned him. There is not much time left before summer vacation. Don't I also have to give you tutoring lessons during the summer vacation? What's the difference? Indeed, just because you make money as an artist, you can't stop being my tutor. I'm just thinking about Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. I will be your tutor until you go to college. Sensing her expectation, Kurosawa Hikaru also took the initiative to agree. There is less than a year left before she takes the college entrance examination, and she has to be responsible for everything until the end. It's settled, when I get admitted to Dongda University, I will be your junior high school girl. Seeing that he had this thought, Siphon Jayuan Murai's beautiful eyes were curved, like two crescent moons. Then don't you have to call me senpai then, Kurosawa Hikaru joked as he remembered that there was such a thing. Just call me an artist? That's fine. It will help you become a master of archery and your reputation will be even greater. Having made an appointment for next Sunday or even a year's tutoring class, Siphon Jayuan felt a lot more reassured about the future. He immediately imagined it and thought it would have both advantages and disadvantages. There's one thing I need to explain in advance. What? Kyoto master Hikaru Kurosawa and artist Hikaru Kurosawa are two people, Kurosawa said seriously. I want to be a masked artist, the kind that doesn't show my face so that no one knows I'm Hikaru Kurosawa. You have this handsome face, but you want to be a masked artist? Isn't it such a waste? When Siphon Jayuan heard this decision in the future, he was immediately filled with questions. Needless to say, Kurosawa Hikaru is very good looking and has a superb temperament, especially when he is wearing a hakama suit and shooting arrows, he is even more handsome. With such a foundation, he should be able to attract many little girls with his face. Many reasons. Kurosawa Hikaru felt that this matter was a bit complicated to talk about. The key was that it involved other girls and it was difficult to mention it. Although he had agreed on some matters, he still felt that it was a very bad behavior to mention other girls in front of a girl, and it would not be a happy topic. This is like if your girlfriend suddenly asks you on a whim, what kind of person is your ex-girlfriend? If you really answer honestly, you are stepping into a trap. It is better to be vague and perfunctory. Could it be because you don't want everyone to know about how many boats you have stepped into? Siphon Jayuan suddenly refused to talk when he saw him in the future, and after thinking about it, he had a clue. You really have a sharp eye. After seeing the truth, Kurosawa didn't deny it. His relationship with Sifenjayuan Mirai is very special. Although he wants to avoid mentioning other girls' things in front of her and making her unhappy, in this case, it can still be admitted. What are the fiery eyes and golden eyes? It means nothing can be hidden from your eyes. Finding that she didn't know the plot of Journey to the West, Kurosawa explained after thinking about it. Of course, Sifenjayuan smiled after hearing this compliment. The half-hour break was over quickly. After dinner, they continued their classes seriously. Counting Tuesday and Thursday, there is only 1 hour of rest, which is still very short. Even though it was such a short time, it was hard-won and extremely satisfying for the future of Sifenjayuan. Until 10:30 in the evening, the day's classes were over. Good night. As Akai Sayaka reminded that today's tutoring class was over, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at Shifunjin Mirai beside him and whispered while sorting out the teaching materials. Good night. Sifenjayuan Mirai was sorting out the textbooks. When he heard this sentence, he was stunned, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and he whispered. Even though we said good night to each other through text messages for 2 consecutive days starting from Sunday, it was not as joyful as saying it in person. After the tutoring class, Kurosawa Hikaru left the apartment and took the subway home. At home, just like the previous few days, he first replied to Xiaoyuki, and also did not forget to send a message to Miss Ninomiya. In addition, there was a message from Igarashi Runa. Get ready. I'll pick you up after school tomorrow and let's go to our new company to see you. So fast. Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. He didn't expect that she had prepared everything in just a few days, and she agreed. If you think about it carefully, Ms. Runa's mobility is very strong. For example, she immediately approached Xiaoyuki and tried to find out about the karaoke singer. In addition to that, there was also her assist on that date. Basically, as long as she wanted to, she could do it. I remember inviting Kinzuru. I successfully persuaded her to invest so much for the first time because I told her that building a recording studio by myself would avoid a lot of trouble. I hinted that she would meet you at the company without worrying about being seen. Igarashi Runa sent a proud expression, and then sent a message. Is there still such a thing? Seeing these words, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little surprised. He found that Miss Ninomiya's feelings were really reserved and hidden. She is not like Xiaoyuki, who shows her love on the surface, nor is she like Shifunjin Mirai, who is unscrupulous in revealing her true feelings. Perhaps it was because of her status, or because of her personality, but Miss Ninomiya's feelings and kindness towards him were like a gentle rain that moistened everything silently. For example, in terms of equity distribution, it is no exaggeration to say that as long as the business is successful, he will be able to say goodbye to the worries of money from now on. I think the unreasonable distribution of this matter was also decided by Miss Ninomiya. She would rather suffer a loss than let him suffer a loss. Thanks again to Zayazayo for the leader's reward. The 2 more chapters owed by the reward are currently cleared, but there are still many more chapters for average subscription, and there are also more chapters for monthly tickets. Don't forget to vote. Shushu wants to rush to the new monthly ticket list. Is there a chance?